Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar. This is the webinar on finding the right people to support me. So for those that are new to this webinar series, it's part of the new Be Human, Let's Talk About series, and we're hosting various themes and subjects that are important to people. So we started off doing an awful lot around COVID and responding to COVID. And then more and more, as we started talking to people, we found that there were subjects that actually people really wanted to get talking about. And one of them was this one, which is, well, how do you recruit really good people to support you? How do you recruit PAs? The webinar will be recorded for other people to be able to see it publicly. So they're recorded and they're listed on the Be Human website, but they're also on a YouTube video as well. So just so that you're aware, how to participate today, you'll see a panel there, and if you want to ask a question verbally, there's a little hand that you can put up there, and then I'll be able to unmute you to ask your question verbally online and live. If you're not happy to do that, then there's a question box and you can type questions in and we'll pick them up and be able to ask them questions either on your behalf, or I might sneakily say, do you want to ask that verbally? And come and we can open up your mic. If you're on an iPad, it's slightly different, but you still have your little hand to raise a hand if you want to ask something verbally, and you also have the question box. And then, of course, there's, you know, if any questions on anything around sound or anything else, you can pop in there and we'll pick it up sort of underneath. So what to expect today? We've got lots of speakers today, really good speakers. So we've got speakers from national organisation to local organisation, and then we've got people who are living this and actually have done, they've recruited people themselves and they've managed to get some really good support for themselves. So they're going to be sharing their direct experience of how that's worked for them. I'm really conscious that because we've got so many speakers, we don't want to have the time taken up with that, and we want to give you the opportunity to be able to ask questions. So we're limiting each speaker to 5 minutes each, and they've given me permission to sort of interrupt them at 5 minutes so that we can make sure that we have got some time to have discussions and ask questions at the end of the presentations. So without further ado, thank you, Claire, for joining us. Claire's from the Pendrell's Trust.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm Claire Bickford. I'm a regional manager for Pendrell's Trust, and I've worked in the independent living field for nearly 25 years. One of my main responsibilities I have is to support and oversee our PA recruitment and PA finder service. This part of my job, I really do enjoy it. Next slide, please. So at Pendrell's Trust, we support people receiving direct payments and personal health budgets nationally. We work in partnership with 45 local authorities and 29 CCGs. We have over 15,000 individual employers using our payroll bureau, employing over 20,000 personal assistants. I have a specialist interest in supporting individual employers to recruit personal assistants and promoting the PA role in its true sense, working with an individual on a one-to-one basis to support them in the way they wish to be supported. In addition to my work at Pendrell's Trust, my day job, I'm a member of the Skills for Care PA framework, and I also sit on an advisory group for the Department of Health and Social Care. My role at DHSE is to ensure that individual employers and PAs are represented in the various projects that they do. Next slide, please. So since direct payments began, I feel we've seen the true meaning of the PA role demise. This is mainly down to direct payments becoming the default option rather than a choice option made by the person who needs care and support. I see it as our role as a national provider of support to continue to work to the principles that underpin the uniqueness of the PA role. There are many ways to recruit PAs, and my co-presenters will be giving you a range of different options. I want to give you some important points to think about before you go ahead with placing your job advert wherever that may be. Are we on slide 4? Yes. So start with a really good job description. Think about what you would like to achieve. It's also about fitting in with what others may think is right or what you need. Or if you're new to becoming an individual employer, possibly thinking about you needing to fit in with what you've previously been used to. So for example, an agency coming in to support you at 8 AM when you would really like your support to be at 10 AM. List all of the things that are important to you, what your goals and ambitions look like. A job description is a formal document. It can be legally binding, but it doesn't need to be complicated. Basically, it's an everyday list of what you or the person who is going to receive the support wants or would like. Next slide, please. I would recommend adding in some standard sentences around flexibility and this needing to be mutual. As we all know, often things change, our plans, our likes, our dislikes, what we do in work, socially. You may have even filled that application form in to be on MasterChef. At Pendrell's Trust, we also encourage our individual employers to include things like if there are pets in the home, whether it's a smoking household, if the individual employer or person being supported has any allergies. You also need to include things like age restrictions. For example, the PA will need to drive your car, and typically insurance providers will exclude drivers under the age of 21 or 25. For prospective PAs, all of the above factors may mean they decide not to apply or they are excluded for your role. This avoids any wasted time or tricky situations further down the line. And a really good resource that can help you with this is the In Control publication workbook, which you can see the front cover is up on the slide at the moment. And it's in the driving seat. And I know that you'll be able to download all the links. They'll be passed for the icons that I'm using today. So once you've created your job description, this will naturally form the basis for your advertisement. Chris and my co-presenters are going to talk more in detail around this and give you some more examples. Next slide, please. One of the direct results of COVID-19 pandemic is that sadly lots of people are now out of work. However, the offshoot of this is that there will be an increased number of people looking for work. These people may not have been caring or supporting in a previous role, but have transferable skills and qualities that make a good PA. Since the beginning of March, we've seen a 76% increase in the number of applications for our PA Finder service. We feel that the Everyday is Different national recruitment campaign impacted this increase, together with a number of people who are now out of work. I am aware that some individual employers specifically want PAs who have no experience. Some like to see previous experience, and for others, experience may be essential. Next slide, please. So with all of this in mind, we at Pendrell's Trust have collated some useful resources that may help both prospective PAs and individual employers. Again, you'll be able to click on the links and it'll take you straight to the website. And I'd thoroughly recommend the British Red Cross app, whether you're in a caring role, whether you need care, or whether you're just, you know, out there in the general public. It's brilliant. Next slide, please. So a question of care is a really good tool for people who may be thinking about being a PA, or for individual employers to use as a values and talent measuring resource as part of the interview process. And it's Ben's story that will take you to the PA scenarios. I'd also recommend using the Skills for Care values-based recruitment resource. And if you're new to becoming an individual employer and want to learn more about what you should be looking for in a PA, they also have a guide to being a PA which underpins the true values and uniqueness. Next slide, please. Once you've recruited, it's important that you continue to form a unique relationship with your PA. The focus is always going to be about you as the employer being able to achieve what you want. However, this relationship needs to be two-way, which will enable you and your PA to get the best out of your relationship. This resource, produced by Disability Sheffield, being person-centred, a guide for supervision and appraisals, is a great tool for promoting and actively working to achieve a person-centred, focused value. Next slide, please. And thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Claire. So we're going to carry on. Please get your questions in the question box and we'll do verbal questions afterwards. So the next presenter is Chris Morris from Cheshire Centre of Independent Living. Thanks, Chris, for joining us.
That's okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Morris and I'm a care and support advisor for Cheshire Centre for Independent Living. So next slide. And the next one again. So we're commissioned by Health and Local Authority to offer independent advice and support to people in receipt of personal health budgets and direct payments. So we assist and guide people on how to become employers and give them the tools they need to manage a package of care. The way I describe my role is to get the best care available for you at the most cost-effective way for the commissioners. So next slide, please. So today we're going to cover the process of recruiting a PA. So we're going to look at what you're looking for, writing the advert, managing the response, the initial telephone screening, so interviewing face-to-face, the post-interview process of referencing DBS checks, and then managing the package of care. So next, please. So what are you looking for? This is where you need to decide on exactly what you want the person to do. So are they going to be completing personal care, household duties, or do you need them to drive? What type of person you're looking for. So what's going to be your ideal match? And this can be as vague or as focused as you like. What hours they'll be working. So are they doing set hours or does it need to be flexible? And what are going to be the key factors on your decision making? So do they like dogs, for example, certain hobbies and interests? Have they had previous experiences of PA and what you might have in common? So all those factors are going to help you write your advert and your job description. So next, please. So this is an example of an advert we've used previously. Don't overcomplicate your adverts. People mainly want to know what they'll be doing, who they're going to be working for, when they're going to be working, and how much they're getting paid for doing it. And those are the main factors that people look at when reading a job. The rest they kind of gloss over. Next, you need to decide how you're going to have your response. So are you going to accept CVs? Would you prefer them to have application forms or a personal profile? And think about where you're going to advertise the role. So you're going to put it online, social media, or out in the community. This advert that we posted within the first weekend had 42 responses, and then over the next 2 weeks went up to 68, which for a lot of people can seem quite daunting. Over the next slide, we'll manage how to meet those expectations. So managing the response, as I said, can be quite daunting and make people quite anxious. Remember your advisor's there to help you with this. Remember what your key criteria was and your key factors you were looking for in this person, and do they match that? So do they fit the age range that you set? Were you looking for males or females? Previous experience, the love of dogs? And just put it into 3 separate boxes. So yes, no, and maybe. Initially be quite ruthless. Some people are going to stand out as yes and no's. That's easy. If you have to think about something, somebody's CV, and go back to it and look again, put them in the maybes, because you can always go back and look at them at a later date. Ideally, this will then give you 3 to 5 candidates to progress to the next stage. So next slide, please. So your initial telephone screening. Set yourself 3 to 5 questions, and this could be something about their background, why did they apply for the job, what their hobbies and interests are. Basically anything that's going to help you make the decision. So this is basically to give you a feel for that person. Keep your scoring system simple. So some people say, oh, number it 1 to 5. It can be as easy as just putting a tick or a cross next to that question that you asked them. So over a 4 to 5 minute call, this should ideally make your mind up about this person. Trust your instincts and go with that. So next slide, please. So face-to-face interviewing. So what questions are you going to ask? What do you want to know? So your advisor can help send out a standard list of questions. Use those, write your own, whichever, it's entirely up to you. If you are conducting face-to-face interviews, try and keep it somewhere public. Don't do it in your own home. Do it in a local cafe, garden centre, because you never know who's going to turn up, and if you don't like that person, they then know where you live. So if you're not doing face-to-face and you're doing it via video, what platform are you going to use? So there's so many out there at the moment. You've got Zoom, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Teams, all have multi-person video capability. Ask your advisor to help. So they can help you set up the interview times, and we can be there on the interview with you. The only thing we can't do is offer you any advice and make the decisions for you. But if we see anything glaring, we'll sort of point it out. Look for gaps in employment and ask the people to explain what they were doing during that time. And you'll always get the 30-second rule. So the 30-second rule, you'll normally make your mind up on that person within the 30 seconds. Try and block it out and follow through with the rest of the interview, because you might change your mind about the person during the process. So next slide, please.
5 minutes, Chris, now.
So referencing, you're going to do those by telephone or email. Telephone always gives you the opportunity to ask questions that you can't do on an email. Your DBS check, your advisor can assist with that. And just because they have got a conviction doesn't mean you can't employ them. You just need to look at whether they were open about it and what it was for. You then send out the job offer, which you can either do verbally or PAs may ask for a letter, and there are templates available. Your employer liability insurance, which needs to be in place before they start. The higher rate does offer you employment law advice. And then the contract of employment. There are organisations that can offer that, but the insurance providers do offer one as well. And when they're dealing with dismissal cases, it is easier sometimes for them if they're dealing with their own contract. So next slide, please. So the final one, just how you're going to manage the account for the money that you get. Are you going to manage it yourself, a nominated person or a supported bank provider? Are they earning enough to need payroll? Again, are you going to do that yourself, an accountant or a provider? Team leaders, sometimes on larger packages of cares, they can help you fill the rotas, cover sickness shifts and complete the timesheets. And finally, the contingency. So can you manage if your PA is off? If not, are you going to go to an agency or employ bank staff to cover those shifts? So that's me done. Thank you very much for your time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Miro Griffiths is next. For those that have been on webinars before, you've heard Miro speak before. Thanks, Miro, for coming on to this webinar.
No, you're very welcome. Hello, everybody. So, just for quick context, I'm 31 years old. I've been using self-directed support since I was 18. I originally had it was joint funded social care health. Now I have a personal health budget taken as direct payment, so I'm in complete control of it as well. I have 6 PAs currently. I have 24-hour assistants. 6 PAs currently. They range level of service, length of service, sorry, I should say. Range from one goes back 20 years, was with me before I was allowed to get a direct payment, and stayed with me. And the baby of the group is somebody who came in 4 months ago, just before coronavirus hit, and what a whirlwind of an employment that's been for them, I'm sure. So there's 4 kind of areas I want to touch on. I'll introduce the 4 areas first in case I run out of time, and I can obviously pick this up with people afterwards. Firstly, it's about planning and preparation. Secondly, it's about the recruitment process. Third is about interviews. Fourth, about induction. So in terms of planning and preparation, first thing I do is I will review my existing support plan. I have out of my PA team, there is one PA who is kind of what we refer to as the chief PA. So they will be involved in discussions with PA if any issues are arising. They liaise with me. We talk about the rota. We talk about any issues that may crop up. And there's also the kind of go-between when we do appraisals, that chief PA will sit in on the appraisals as well. So first thing I do on my own is I'll look at the support plans, look at the gaps in the support plan. What do I want to fill? Then I'll look at the rota and think about where is it in terms of shift patterns that I'm looking for. I'm very organized, so I prefer to have shift patterns agreed well in advance. Our rotas rotate every 4 months, so PAs know what they're working for 4 months, and then it will refresh after that. So we'll look at the gaps, and then we'll look at whether there are any specific skills needed. So, you know, I've got 24-hour package, but some PAs are better suited to accompany me when I'm going into professional environments. Some PAs are better suited to do nights. So I'm looking for different skills. So I'll look at the gaps and look at what I need, and then think about how to develop that advertisement. Much in terms of what people have said already, the advertisement will primarily be a short page of information. I set up a separate email address which directs all the attention, all the traffic for the advertisement for applications. It won't give my details, but it will give a general background about what I do, what I'm looking for, and what are the kind of key requirements. You know, for example, driving. It will also give an indication of what shift I'm looking for people to do, and it will give information about where to go to apply. So people then send in their applications. That takes us through to the next stage, which is recruitment. So in terms of where the advertisement goes, I will first go on to PA registers, and I'll do a quick look around. Some websites offer a service where PAs say, I'm looking for work, so I can directly go to them and say, here's an advert. If you're interested, contact me. Alternatively, I might stick an advert up there as well. I also tend to prefer doing it in kind of broader social media platforms. So I'll stick an advert on Facebook jobs. I'll stick an advert on Gumtree. I'll do a local community site like Next Door Neighbor. And that's a way of trying to spread out the attention, the pool of interest. So then we put a time scale on that. So it's good to try and plan how long you want to give people to reply to the advert. Then we'll review the applications. That will be done by email. What I ask for in terms of applications is a CV and a short 1-paragraph statement why they want to be a PA and what do they think a PA is. And that's a useful way of then trying to shift through those who think that they're coming to do an office job. And you do get a lot of them. I've got a lot of people who, even though it says supporting a disabled person with a physical impairment, they say, I'm great at Excel and I've been working in Excel spreadsheets for months. Then we respond to the applicants by email, and we invite them to an interview. I will also, when they give their name, I will also do a quick search through the internet, say Google, for example, just to see if their name gets flagged up on any newspaper articles, any inappropriate sites, and so on. That has happened, and that's a useful way of kind of weeding out those who may not be suitable for the role. Then people get invited to interview, so that takes us to the interview stage. Who's involved in the interview? Well, it's always going to be me. It will also be my partner as well, because the PA is coming into our home. So I need to have an agreement with the people who live in my home that they are comfortable with the potential person coming in. And I will usually have, say again?
On the 5 minutes now, yeah.
Okay, so I'll come quickly then. So we'll then have a chief PA sitting on the interview as well. And we then kind of talk through, identify who we want. And then finally, that takes us to the induction phase. And again, I'll come back to interviews and the questions. But the induction phase, really important. Organize your contract. I use the Skills for Care template contract, which is quite accessible. We then spend a considerable amount of time in the induction period. About 3 months is my induction period, where we'll spend a lot of time talking, thinking through values, ethics, morality issues. So do their values align with me? And that's a useful way then of also identifying by conversation what's working well in that induction period, what's not working well, where are the parts where we need to have training, and then we have a kind of closing meeting at the end of the induction, and we agree whether it's working well or not working, and is this a job that they want to stay in or not. And if they don't want to, then it's a good opportunity to release them. We can go back to recruitment, and if they want to stay in, then we've got a new member of staff. But issues with the interviews and other aspects of retention, I'll pick up on in questions.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Miro. So we're moving now on to Tricia. Hi, Tricia. Welcome. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello. You can go straight onto the first slide if you like. There we go. So hi, I'm Tricia. I'm an associate for In Control and also work for myself. So that's within my house. There's me and there's Sam, who's 25, and Lucy, who's 20. That's not actually their real names, but so you can see in that photo, Sam's on the right-hand side. Then next to him is Katie, a PA, and then next to Katie is Lucy, and to the left of Lucy is Becky, another PA. So Sam and Lucy were my foster kids. Sam came when he was 10 and Lucy when she was 8, and they still live with me. They've had a small personal budget since they were little and now have a substantial one. And Lucy has been funded through continuing healthcare, but she's not at the moment. It's one of those situations that kind of fluctuates. They're both autistic. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk particularly about the finding. You've had lots of really, really good stuff about the processes, so I'm not really going to do too much on process, but I want to talk about the focus on finding PAs, because I hear everywhere I go that it's really, really hard to find PAs. And I have lived in a little village in East Yorkshire, and I live now currently in a big town in the south of England, and I've genuinely never had a problem finding PAs. So back in the day, so we'll go back to 2009, Sam was 14, and he had funding for 30 hours a month. Now, we had, when Sam first came, he was using a residential short break service, and that didn't last very long because he didn't want to do it anymore. But then we didn't have any support for a while, and then we eventually got this 30 hours a month. And I was really mindful that he was a young man of 14 and spending far too much time with a whatever I was at that point, 40-something-year-old woman. So that's a picture of our village shop where I used to live. And Alec used to run the village shop, and anybody who's got a village shop or a corner shop knows that all sorts of amazing transactions happen that are nothing to do with buying a can of beans. So I went into Alec and said, know anybody who might be up for hanging out and doing stuff with Kieran? There we go, I said the wrong name already, with Sam. And he said, Josh. You might not think of Josh, he gets excluded from school quite a lot, but I think he'd be great with Sam. That was great. So Josh was 17 at the time, nearly 18, and he was working in the local pub, earning something like £5.50 an hour in the kitchens. And he knew Sam from school because Sam was in our local comp. And yes, he did get excluded from school quite a lot, but as I got to know him really well, he was excluded for all the right reasons, for standing up for himself and for standing up for other people. So so I popped around to see, I asked Alec where he was and popped around to see him and his mum and dad. And at that point, the rate of pay was £8 an hour. And he actually said to me, so you're seriously saying you want me to go climbing and do the Duke of Edinburgh with Sam and you're going to pay me £8 an hour? Are you crazy? Fast forward 11 years and we now live 200 miles away from him. Sam is literally this today making plans to go and visit him and his girlfriend and their 11-month-old daughter. And he's not worked for us since 2013. He hasn't lived with us, near us, for 5 years, but Sam goes and sees him at least 4 times a year since then. No financial transaction. They're just really good friends. Next slide. So now, we fast forward, needing support that covers both kids at home and gone to a place where Lucy's support was really, really critical. She went through a really, really tough time and she was sometimes needing 2-to-1 support. I moved 5 years ago, I moved 200 miles away, down south from anywhere I knew. And so I had to find new PAs. So essential recruitment agencies, when you're finding new PAs, I find are the hairdresser. Hairdresser, pub and gym for me. I love going to the gym. Basically anywhere you know people that you are known as a person, not just somewhere you visit, but somewhere you've got a relationship with people. So I'm not talking about any pub, I'm talking about the pub where your name is known. I got my first PA from a woman who was a bartender in the pub that we went and had Sunday lunch in the first couple of weeks after we'd moved down south as a family. And Tasha was working as a barmaid. We got chatting. She was really respectful to the kids. I actually asked her if she wanted a job and she said, no, that's not my thing, but I know somebody who'd be great. And she was a natural connector and she found my first PA. Social media, Facebook's the next one. And if you go to the next slide, that's the other, this is my last, that was a couple of years ago, advert on Facebook. You'll see that I don't ever talk about people's impairment. So I don't ever use the word autism in any of my adverts. It's just how we roll. I tend to find that if I do, then I get people who've got MVQ level 25 in working with autistic people, and I don't want those people. So I'm the person who actively seeks out people who haven't had experience. I've had looking through my TAs, I've had someone who'd worked as a nanny, I've had lots of students, I've had someone who's a estate agent, somebody who works in the X-ray department, and a policewoman. And actually I've left the names up there because actually they're people who, I met Lorna and got really friendly with her. She's a mum to another young disabled woman, and Katie became one of my PAs. So next one. So guiding principles for me, look for people who don't know they want to be a PA. That works really well in our household. Next one. Keep it ordinary. So talk about who the person is before any impairments or support needs, and who your family is. Use your connections first. Who do I know? Do I know? Do I know? And when you've got a PA, use their connections. I put into their job description. Clearly, this is not enforceable as a job description, but it's worked. If you're going to leave, you need to find me somebody else. And 5, the power of social media. I'm planning some work with local authorities and CCGs around this issue. So anybody who's interested, please do get in touch. So that's me. Sorry, it was a minute over. I apologise.
Lovely. Thank you, Tricia. I know you're on your last slide. Thanks ever so much. So next we've got Karen, who's sat at the side of me. So it's very lovely. Thank you for being here, Karen.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. A little quick context. I'm Karen. I've been married to Gavin for many, many years. We've had a direct payment for 20 years, and for the last 8 years, we've had a personal health budget in our home, which I manage with Gavin to ensure that we try and get the best of it. 8 years ago when we started, it was easier for us to actually think about what he didn't want rather than what he did want, because everybody was telling us what we wanted and what we needed. So we went down the role of what don't we need and want. And for Gavin, it was no females, no experts who've done it before. He just wanted ordinary, genuine people who he could trust. At that time, we went from having one PA for about 20 hours a month to having round-the-clock care from a team of 6/7 people. So it was a big, massive jump for us. We did think about the role, the boundaries, the legal responsibilities, what we could do, and what we were prepared to do, and what others would do for us. We thought about where we get them from, the people we support. We wanted and chose a support broker to manage the money because I didn't want to do that. I had enough to do. So, and there's a legal responsibility to getting it right. So where would we find all these men from that we needed? And the advert. So we started looking at the advert, and very similar to Tricia, we didn't talk about Gavin's impairments, Gavin's needs. It was very non-medical, because what we were trying to sell was the role, not Gavin. He wasn't for sale at all. So we looked at things like personal interests. We asked people to tell us about themselves when we decided where to look, and the role of the PA, what they thought it was. And we got an awful lot of adverts from people who were into admin. But it doesn't really matter. We learned from that experience. So we looked in places like barbers, we looked at sports type places, we talked to male friends who had friends, and what we wanted people to do was know Gavin and what a geek he is, that he's into music, computers, upcycling. After people had applied, and we did go through, somebody set up an email address for us and prepared us and took all the applications. And what we did, we had a quick chat and we sat down, and he very quickly weeded out the wheat from the chaff, who were the experts, and we were left with ordinary people. So then we invited 5 of them to actually come to our house to what we called the getting to know you session. And we created chaos because, like Miro said, we're a married couple, we've got children, we've got grandchildren, I've got a mum with dementia, and this is our life. And it was very important to us that we could carry on with that. And if they couldn't cope with that situation, and some people actually did leave and couldn't cope, they were in the wrong place. And what we did at that time, we were looking at kindness, humour, how they related to each other, how they related to Gavin. How did they negotiate barriers that we'd set up around Gavin being able to do things? Did they do things for him, or did they do things with him? Did they involve him? And from that, then, we actually paid them for that working session, because we thought it was important that they understand the role and what the role was going to be. The early days were very, very tricky, going from having nobody in your house all the time to having somebody. But things changed, but they still stayed tricky. And every day still is very, very tricky. We'd still do a 6-month induction period. Those early days, we all worked together alongside each other. And every day was different. What we've got from this is we've actually got a team of PAs who've been with us for the 8 years. We do monthly breakfast chats in terms of, as groups, we talk about what's happening, what's going well. We've talked about the training. we struggled and battled. CCGs talk about getting people to manage their own health conditions, but they're a little bit reluctant to let go and train PAs because the role is still undervalued. Our PAs are a highly skilled team. They actually can do things that district nurses can't, and this is what keeps Gavin alive. So our PAs, it's built on trust, it's built on equality. We don't have a team leader as such, but what we do have, we've got a natural PA who just take the lead. We have a rolling rota, so like Miro, everybody knows what they're working, they can tell you when they're working right up to next year. We manage risk proactively, we own it. And this is about relationship. We've put together a circle, Gav's gang, people who we've got to know and know around, who've got skills, who can help us manage it if I get into trouble or if I get stuck with something. It's about relationships and the roles. It's not about the job for us. This is about people's lives, and that includes the PAs and it includes ours. And in doing that, we've gone through 3 babies, 2 divorces and 1 death, but it wasn't Gavin, so we're doing okay. It's not perfect, but it's perfect for us, but it's tricky.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Karen. And last but not by any means least, we've got Carol. People will have met Carol on the last webinar. Thanks, Carol, for joining us.
Thank you, Julie, and really enjoying listening to all the other speakers this afternoon. They're great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to participate today again. My name's Carol Reeves. I'm a project lead for the work supporting employees of PAs at Skills for Care. And for those that don't know, Skills for Care is an organisation that works with adult social care employees and other partners to develop skills, knowledge and values of those supporting people with care and support needs. And this includes people who are employing personal assistants using a social care and or health budget, and those that are self-funded as well. And while we don't deliver direct training ourselves, Skills for Care has a range of resources that can help employers plan and develop their workforce. And our work is informed by our steering group, of which Claire is a member, which is made up of employers and representatives of PAs and supporting organisations. Next slide, please. So Skills for Care's main resource for supporting people to find and recruit the right people is the Employing Personal Assistance Toolkit. It has different sections, including one on recruiting, training and sorting out problems.
Carol,
yes.
Excuse me, Carol, it's coming across a bit muffled in the sound.
Oh,
so
sorry.
You're wearing a microphone, but people are just.
Okay, I'm using my headset. I hope, is that a bit better?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I've got it nearer me, thank you. So Skills for Care's main resource for supporting people to find and recruit the right people is the Employing Personal Assistance Toolkit. It has different sections, including recruiting, training and sorting out problems. It's online and in printed copies, and you can get those directly from Skills for Care. And we're also developing an easy read that will be available soon. Also with the toolkit, there are sample templates, which Miro has mentioned before, that includes things like sample job adverts, letters to invite people to interview and offering them the job, a sample contract of employment, training needs forms, forms to help set out procedures, and much, much more. Next slide, please. We have in the past supported projects to develop and test different recruitment models which organisations that are supporting people to recruit PAs can use. And from these we've produced guides and case studies which people might find of interest. And they're all on our information hub, which I'll come to in a moment. So this guide that is on the screen now is about using a sector-based work academy approach for recruiting PAs. And this guide was produced from the best practice from 4 projects that we funded. And using a sector-based work academy model is a type of pre-employment training programme that offers unemployed people the opportunity to do training and work experience. And we wanted to test whether it would be a good way to attract and recruit people to be PAs. So it gives people the chance to understand more about the role, the sector, and people can find out if it's right for them and they're right for the role. And also it helps employers to develop their skills and confidence. And we also, a few years ago, did fund some other projects where we looked at different approaches to promoting and supporting PA recruitment, and each used different ways to promote the PA role and support recruitment. Next slide, please. We've also developed lots of other tools and resources to help organisations recruit and retain people who have the right values. And although some of these resources that we have are for care provider organisations, some of the tools and the information that's contained within these might be useful for people who are looking to employ PAs or for the organisations that are supporting recruitment. So you can find them using this link that's on the screen, and they include information about planning, values-based recruitment, seeing potential in people, and the Department of Health and Social Care's National Recruitment Campaign. Next slide, please. And our information hub is a website that brings together information from different sources and is useful for individual employers, PAs and organisations supporting them, like local authorities, clinical commissioning groups and the direct payment and user-led organisations. And it also has links to local support. Here you can find links to resources like the Employing Personal Assistance Toolkit, the Guide to Being a PA, the videos about being a PA, experiences of other employers and lots of other practical guides for things like DBS checks, understanding the employment status of personal assistants and supporting learning and development. And at this time, we've also added in some COVID-19 specific pages to the site to help people with relevant guidance. Next slide, please. And as well as providing information, Skills for Care disperses funding to support individual employers to access training for themselves and their PAs. So this funding can support people who are new to being an individual employer, and perhaps they want to go on some employment law training or other training to be a really good employer. But it also can support their PAs to develop their skills so that they can meet the needs of their employer. And we fund a whole range of training as well. So it's not just the usual mandatory training, as that's called, but also specific condition awareness. So we do this in two ways. One is that people can apply to us directly, and they just have to fill out an application form. And another way is we fund training via the user-led organisations. So check out our website for more information, and hopefully we'll be announcing the opening of that funding very soon. And you're already on the next slide, which is good. And from August, Skills for Care is going to be running a series of webinars that aims to support employers, PAs and organisations supporting them. And the first three that we're going to be concentrating on is about COVID-19 related public health information. And one will be about wellbeing resources and how to access them, and another on recruiting during the pandemic. So keep an eye on our events pages for more details that will follow. And to keep up to date with what Skills for Care has to offer, register to receive our quarterly newsletter. The next one is due out at the end of July. Next slide. And that's just a really quick run through of the main ways in which Skills for Care can support individual employers and PAs, and to find out more links on which we can share afterwards. So thanks for your time today. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks ever so much, Carol. And I do appreciate, I think somebody's put it in the question box as well, that people have raced through that, and it's been really quick. Like I say, it has been recorded so people can take the time and do it. We was just really, really concerned that we got through any questions that weren't covered so that people had a chance to speak themselves. So there's been some things in the boxes, the questions and the slides will all be available after the webinar. So the speakers have kindly said that we can share some of their slides so that we can get them out to people via a PDF. In fact, I think somebody's already done that. I can't remember whether it was Skills for Care or Pendles have already done it in a really neat PDF for us, ready to go on the site. So a couple of quick questions, and then I'm going to come to the hands and see if people want to come and ask questions themselves. But there is one to you, Chris. You had a really good response to that advertisement. Where did you advertise?
That was solely on Indeed. That advert went on Indeed, and over the first weekend, as I said, we had 42 responses, and over the next 2 weeks it went up to 68. So yeah, that advert that was solely from Indeed.
Brilliant. And Tricia, one question for you was, how do you know that prospective PAs really understand personal care and health needs if they have no previous experience?
Really good question, and the truth is I don't. So I always go for values, and a good the kind of starting point of somebody who seems to have a good sense of humanity and that sounds really wishy-washy. We do talk, once I've got people, once I've sparked interest for people, then I always have a chat. So a bit like Chris was saying and Miro does, I think, you know, we have a telephone chat. You usually also weed a few more people off then. I also have to say that even that Facebook ad, it's much more about, I tend to find people who have got a link to me, to somebody I know somehow. So I've rarely employed anybody, I'm just trying to think now, I've rarely employed anybody who hasn't been connected to somebody I know. So that kind of, that helps with the trust thing. In terms of actually knowing about what personal care is all about, they won't know because they won't have done it. But once I've got a sense that this person feels like they're a good fit from a values perspective, then I will explain really clearly what sorts of things they might need to be doing and saying, is that an issue? And again, nobody has ever, it genuinely hasn't been an issue at all. I should say the other bit of the kind of values bit of the process is that Lucy's very clear. Sam's fairly laid back, Lucy's not laid back at all. And a really important part of the initial screening is actually done by Lucy. So, and I have to explain this to people, is that once I've got to the point where I'd like to take the interview process further with somebody, the next thing they have to do is to meet Lucy, because Lucy will literally, she's a woman of very few words, but she will look at somebody, probably want to touch their hair, get quite close to them, and then either say, Lucy's house, yes, or she'll look and she'll say, no, bye-bye.
Tricia,
There's
yeah.
there's no Julie's got first-hand experience of this. So, and that's a really valuable and relevant criteria, because if she says no, she says no, and she doesn't want to be supported by that person. That's you know, she doesn't, and we know that she has a huge kind of, she picks up on people's energy and vibe, so she's actually a really good judge of character. So your question, people could be taught about that stuff.
Yeah.
They can't talk about it.
Sarah and Sue, I can see your hands up. I'm going to be coming to you soon and unmute you, but there's a couple of more questions that have sort of come through. So question for you, Karen. So one is, you said that your PAs are highly trained. If I can ask you, who did the training?
The training's been done by a number of people. Some's been done in the hospital situation, some's been done in the house situation by appropriate trained nurses, particularly if it's a medical scenario. So it's whoever and wherever is the most appropriate person for that particular task. All the training we've got in to be done at home in a group situation. For example, epilepsy awareness, we've used them for epilepsy training, but midazolam rescue medication, that's had to be done in a hospital setting.
And the other question for you, Karen, is what does your support broker do?
The broker that we chose actually when I say manages the money, he pays the wages, ensures that the tax is paid, the NI, he does keep a record of the holidays because of the holiday pay. So it's anything to do with the money, because I don't want to do that, to make sure it's legal and above board and I can account for it when I need to do it at the review.
Brilliant. So Miro, one for you, 4 month shifts in advance. How do you manage your holidays?
So when we're getting close to refreshing the rota, PAs will indicate to the chief PA request for holidays. That's then embedded into the new shift coming up, and then that allows us to find other PAs who are happy to do the extra shift to cover the gaps. If a PA requires it more urgently, then we have a system. So if it's a request due to personal circumstances, emergencies, then obviously we just have to acknowledge that, and the PA can't come into work, and we'll find somebody else to cover. But if it's a request for leisure activities and they need to give at least a month's notice, that allows us then to find a replacement PA. But refreshing for me anyway, refreshing every 3 to 4 months it encourages the PAs to think, right, okay, well, I know I'm going to go away for a week, in 4 months' time, so I'll make the point now, so we can start building in then and preparing for that. And it works quite well. And although people may want flexibility, my approach, my PAs who work with me, they all like the idea of having the shifts allocated 4 months in advance, because they know exactly when they're working. They can build their time around, the things they want to do around their shifts. And it does mean that when we do have emergencies, they very rarely happen, because people have been able to be supported to think longer term about when they want time off. And I think it's a fair request as well. So, for example, I work at a university. I have to give about 2 months' notice if I want a week's holiday off. So it's about talking to PAs and trying to come to an agreement about what works well.
Brilliant, thank you. Sue, I'm coming to you now with your hand up to ask your question verbally. So you were saying,
so Julie, can I just add on to what Miro's saying? Would you mind, just about because just for 30 seconds, just to say that I think that's great, Miro, and it really works for you. In our family, that probably wouldn't work, and it's because it wouldn't work. So we tend to do sort of 2 to 3 weeks. But one thing we've built in is that if a PA wants to take, not as an emergency, actually even as an emergency they do this, but particularly if they just a last minute wanting to go out, they have to, it's their responsibility within the team to find cover from each other. So the thing is, they come to me and say, by the way, I'm having next Saturday off, I know I didn't plan it, but actually Becky's covering.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tricia. Sue, you're self-muted. If you want to unmute yourself, you can ask your question live. Okay, that's not happening. So I'm going to come to Becky. Becky, now if you can unmute yourself, you'll be able to ask the question live. Okay, so Andrea, I'm going to come. No, Andrea's, yeah, I'll try Andrea.
Hello, hello,
no,
sorry. Hi,
Becky.
yeah. It said I was muted by you as well as me, which double complicated it. I just wanted to ask a question about medication. Who has delivered medication training to your PAs? How's that overseen? And how's it delegated? How's the task been delegated? So that's to all three of you, really.
Okay, so Karen, do you want to start with that one, how that works for Gav?
Yeah, I'll try. Hi. Gav does have a complicated medication package, and we have had medication training. We've had it in-house by a nurse, and we've also bought some from outside from a company. So we've bought medication training in, and that includes storage, record keeping, delivering, dispensing. So it covers all aspects, really. What we have a refresher every year. Controlled drugs are given accordingly in line with the controlled drugs practice. However, what we need to remember is sometimes we don't have the luxury of having 2 nurses there to give the controlled drugs. So what we do, we make sure it's recorded appropriately. All medication, where possible, comes in a dispenser from the chemist. So that bit's taken out. However, most of the liquid medication is obviously you can't put that in a dispenser, so people have to dispense and record. Any additions are put in, and it's checked and monitored on a weekly basis, and then on a monthly basis at the breakfast chats. Does that answer the question?
It does. Thank you, Karen. I just wanted to ask, the nurse who originally did the training, where was that nurse from? Was it from the GP practice or a district nurse?
Via the CCG.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And so, do you oversee if there's any medication errors or anything like that? Is that your responsibility, or do your monitor that?
Yeah, we have had medication errors. Unfortunately, people are human. And what we do, we try and operate on an open, honest, transparent culture. So if something does go wrong, we talk about it. We look at why it's gone wrong. We take any appropriate action immediately if it needs that. And then we try and put things in place to make sure it won't go wrong again.
Okay, and do you get do you notify the CCG of that?
No, I don't.
No, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Okay, I'm going to come to Sarah now. Sarah, if you unmute yourself, you'll be able to ask your question.
Hiya.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I've got direct payments from social services, and I'm kind of struggling again to find the appropriate PAs for my 15-year-old son. My question is, when you advertise and when you look for the PAs, how, I mean, I'm always scared of confidentiality because whoever, obviously we will try someone and he will be new to us. So how can we like, be so confident that that person will be confidential and he won't share our confidential stuff with others? And the other thing is, someone mentioned about broker service. So will that funding be available in the direct payments funding, or that we have to do it separately?
So Chris, I think you'd be good to answer this question because you're a local person who supports on brokerage issues.
So with the brokerage side, if we get a package of care from, because we cover Cheshire West for the direct payments, so in that amount that comes across, we work out what the amount is that you can pay the PA, the holiday pay, and any additional services you might need. So if you need help managing the account or payroll, then that would go in between the direct payment amount and what you pay the PA.
And what about, Chris, for making sure that applicants stay confidential about the individual? How do you separate that?
Yeah, there's nothing really you can do about that unless you get them to sign some sort of agreement before they come. People are going to be people.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Sarah, what's
I want?
Go on, Sarah.
Sorry, I want to clarify. When you advertise and interview people, do you have to pay to those interview sessions? And if they want the payment for that, how can we invoice that with the direct payments budget?
If the person being interviewed wants to be paid for it,
yes.
That I wouldn't. As Karen was saying earlier, they have an interview section where they come and do like a working interview, where you can pay people for that. But if it's just turning up to go through a standard interview, people shouldn't really be expected to be paid for that.
And to be honest, Sarah, people don't tend to pay for the longevity one either. Some people do 3 or 4 sessions of different types of interview, but wouldn't be paying people to do that at that time.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Ben, I'm going to be coming to you now.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Hi, Ben, yes.
Hi there. So thanks for all the slides. I think the presentation has been great. I've just got a couple of questions, if I may. So I'm a project manager and I work in Bright Future for Children's Services, and we're looking to develop our PAs and how we recruit them and how we potentially look to the parents to actually recruit directly and they take ownership of that. And one of the questions I just wanted to ask was, has any of you got any experience of the transition between children's services and adult services? Is there an issue between a PA supporting a child or a young person, then it goes into adults, and then it kind of falls off a cliff? Is there a good transition there?
Tricia, I think you'd probably be the best to answer that one.
Yeah. Hi, Ben. So I'm really happy to talk to you outside of this because you guys live in Reading and I live in Reading. So let's talk after this. So it wasn't for us. It can be. So we all know that we should be starting to plan with families as children grow up, because we've known since they were born when they were going to be 18, and we all know that doesn't always happen very well. But at least a year before they should be having discussions. It should be before that. But the only issue I found was that I wasn't when I was living in the north at this point for both of the kids, was that was kind of in terms of who the amount of money paid. So I had a lot more flexibility when they were under 18 in terms of how I controlled the budget and how therefore what wages I paid. Okay. And I found that was more difficult as they went into adult services. But there was certainly no, you know, all the people who were working for me when the kids were under 18 just continued working for me when they were over 18, and it was still, I use a payroll now. I was using a payroll before. That was fine. It was completely smooth. So really happy to get in touch and we'll have a chat, because I do live where you guys work. So
that'd be amazing. That'd be really, really helpful. Thank you.
And can I just add something to that as well? Sorry.
Yeah. I
think it depends, Ben, if you're working with local authority or the CHC. It depends who's funding the package. Because if it's funded by CHC, there tends to be a lot less disruption in the transition from children's to adults than it is if it's social care, because you're dealing with the same nurses within the same department, whereas social care, it's normally very different departments and different ways of funding.
I think you're right there, actually. Now you've said that, it could be just bureaucracy getting in the way of things, to be honest.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be, but unfortunately that's how it is.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree. And can I ask one more question then?
Yes, go ahead, Ben.
Is that okay? So just in terms of payments, so there was a mention of liability insurance. Would that be the parents who take that out, or the carers, sorry, or the personal assistants?
I can answer that one if you like. It's as an employer, it's your responsibility to take out the employment liability insurance. Both with CHC funding and direct payments funding, there is a startup grant available where it has a portion of that money is there to pay for the first year's insurance. So it is the employer's responsibility to take it out, but it would be included in the funding.
And then that's slightly different if the PAs are self-employed PAs as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So it would always be the employer's responsibility unless the PA was self-employed.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Thanks,
really
Ben.
helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
So another ones that are on the chat box is, are you allowed to say the age range you want and the sex? So I would imagine you ask for male PAs, don't you, for Gavin, Karen? And I know that I think Tricia has asked specifically for females. So we'll start with Karen.
Yeah. You can differentiate, but you can't discriminate. But it's based on the tasks. So if any of the tasks involve intimate personal care, then as in our case, it was a choice, and we could actually put that as a requirement. I'd just like to say that requirement has now he's changed his mind as time's gone on and things have changed. But at the beginning, that was really important to him. But things do change for some people.
And Tricia, anything to say on age range and choosing the sex?
Exactly the same. So gender stuff, obviously, Lucy does require some personal care. That's a non-negotiable, and I put on the I make reference to the Equalities Act under that, you know, and it's there. That's absolutely fine to say as a woman requires only support from another woman. I have always, when I talk about the age, I think in some cases I say to people, you know, young people, you've got to be over 18, but not so old that you can't bear to be in the same room as the music my young people like to listen to. So that's how I get around it. So people tend to self identify, because if you want to be listening, my kids are both into music, Lucy in particular. If you don't want to be around the music they're around, then you're not going to want the job. And that if you happen to be a 45-year-old who's really into to grunge and manga music, then that's brilliant, and you might get on like a house on fire. So I don't discriminate in that way. However, I do find it tends to self-select. So I generally do have young women apply.
So just stay with it, Tricia. Question that's come in for you and Karen specifically is, why do you prefer people with no experience?
Do you want to go first?
Go on, Karen.
Go on, you're okay.
Okay. I think I said kind of facetiously in my when I was doing my slides. People, if they have had experience, then people are very keen to tell me that they've had experience. They know how to do the job I want them to do. And they also will tell me they know all about autistic children or young people, therefore they'll be really good. And as we all know, when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So I just have found that, like lots of us, I suspect most of us who was on this call or presenting, our family are pretty particular about how we like to live our lives, and you have to kind of fit into that. And I have found it over the years. The only person who didn't gel so well as a PA was someone who had experience. And yeah, so I just find that people are much more open to doing things differently. They're much more likely to challenge, because we don't run our lives in anywhere near service land. We're very, very ordinary, and we spend most of our time trying to do the most ordinary things possible, exactly the same as Karen and Miro. So we want people who get that and who will kind of fight for that.
Karen, anything to add?
In our situation, we've both had contact with services before and worked with staff from services, and Gavin has a range of conditions that would require a range of experts, and there's not enough experts in the world to make it work. So we decided to go for ordinary people who had the right values, the same interests as Gavin, going back to music, yeah, a lot of ska, a lot of whatever. So that's why we did it. There was nothing particular. It was just that we didn't want people coming into our already chaotic life that was made more chaotic by a range of conditions, and then deciding they could control it, because we couldn't control anything. So let's just get on and live.
Thanks, Karen. So Anna, I'm coming to you. So if you take yourself off self-mute, Anna, you should be able to speak.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
Hello. A great webinar.
Thank you.
I just got a question to ask. I have 2 PAs that are living, doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Right.
How do other people manage to cover when, like for bank holidays, Christmas and New Year, I always get a struggle to get them to cover.
Okay, so Miro, are you happy to pick that up? So if you've got two PAs doing a 2-week live in, live out, how do you get people to cover then for the main holidays?
So I think well, I think one thing to do is could you build up a network of what some people refer to as kind of bank staff. So I have 2 PAs who are on my books, but they don't have any regular hours and they don't want any regular hours. What they do want is to be contacted when there is a need to try to cover, and that's an opportunity then to go beyond the existing pool of PAs to see if there's the possibility to cover. With regard to specific holidays, what I tend to do, I try to ensure that there's a little bit surplus in the budget, and try to inflate hours around the bank holiday periods or holiday periods to make it more of an incentive to work that. But what we do is that we start having conversations about known holidays well in advance, so that we are clear on who's doing it. Now, typically, if a PA is doing a Christmas Day, they won't be on New Year's Day, and it'll have to be somebody else. But we recognise and we have those conversations probably towards the end of summer, so that we've got some clarity about who's doing what. But it is a difficult conversation, but equally it's something that I pick up on in the induction period about expectations of when people are going to work and when people aren't going to work, and that's something that we've done.
I do it all written in a contract, but when it comes down to it.
Yeah, well, I think if it's a case of it's good to explain it in the contract in the first instance during that the induction period. But then I would say, you know, it's helpful then to try and bring it up at in an appropriate point in the year before those known holidays come up. Now, and then if the PA is regularly cancelling their shifts on their holidays, even though they've agreed to it, then obviously that's a question of kind of, you know, that you could be bringing up in an appraisal, either in an emergency appraisal or in the annual review. And that's something I was going to talk about, but we obviously with the time limit. But I think things that you do to retain your PAs is equally as important as what you do to recruit PAs as well.
Do bank PAs get paid?
No, as like a retainer. No, well, so the bank PAs are not paid on a retainer. What they are is they agree to the terms and conditions that they will not have guaranteed hours, but they will be approached if they want to be. Now, I'm not a fan of kind of 0-hour work, so that's why when a PA joins my team, we identify how many hours they're going to have, and they're going to have those guaranteed hours. But over time, what I do is in conversations with people, again, kind of going back to Tricia's point about informal networks and your kind of local networks, I find people who say, oh, you know, by the way, if you ever need a PA for, you know, not guaranteed, I can't guarantee, but if you need a PA to do a few hours for you in an emergency or for cover, just let me know. So then we put them on we obviously do appropriate interviews and so on, and then we put them on the payroll system, and we just keep them there in case there's an opportunity where they need to come in. And we can go out to the bank people and say, can anybody work this day? But by having the conversation earlier in advance, that's when I can then, I'm not panicking. And I think this is one of my rationale for why I do my rotas longer in advance. I because of my work schedule and so on, I've got to be very, very organized in that sense. And I feel more comfortable being very organized. But in September, from having conversations about bank holidays for Christmas, I know that actually if none of my PAs are available for various reasons, then we'll have to go and look at the bank. And then if there's nobody available in the bank, then we have to try to go back to the original PA network and say, well, look, this shift does need covering, so we need to have a discussion about where's the fairness about who's going to do it.
Thank you very much. Could I email you afterwards?
Yeah, yes, you can, anybody listening can email me. I'm happy to pick up any conversations.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I think Chris was going to come in as well on that one.
Anna, just a very quick one. We have a couple of young ladies who employ people, the PAs on, week off, but they also have a backup agency as well. And there's certain agencies out there that provide live-in carers who are happy to stand as a backup for emergencies. So that's always handy to have in the background.
The trouble with agency, I don't think they would do half of the stuff that I need them to do regarding my care.
Depends if you go to a complex care agency, because there are complex care living agencies as well as just standard ones. So it would depend what you want them to do, but there are ones out there that do complex care as well.
Okay, thanks,
Chris. Thanks, Anna. But do get in touch with us, Anna. Isa, I'm coming to you now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, hi. I wonder if you could help me. What it is, I've been waiting 3 years for a PA. My circumstances, I'm visually impaired. I suffer with complex PTSD due to two traumas, one resulting in my visual impairment, and also additionally I have severe ME. Now I get I don't get any support at the moment, but I've done it through the adult social care team, and they've recruited, obviously their agency that they use. They see me as very problematic because one of the criteria I asked for was it possible that someone could assist me also with my dog, who assists me with my visual impairment as well as the emotional support dog. Their answer is, it's very difficult to find somebody that likes dogs, and we come as a package, myself and my dog, who's, as I say, is my best buddy. I'm very isolated. Lockdown is not a new thing to me. I haven't been out for a long time, and also isolated. I'm now seen as the problem that the people they've put my way, it's like she's been here and there, literally between the months. it's like putting a square into a circle. And I'm saying, no, I'm very clear and precise what I'm looking for. I need to engage once again back into the community, to be able to get out and about. And also, obviously, the days I live on a day-to-day basis, depending on my energy levels, etc., that someone can assist me, like maybe walk my dog, or to help me get to the vets or whatever else, or just go for lunch would be nice. I'm seeing as the problem. Sorry?
Do you have a direct payment? I'm just wondering.
I do, yeah.
The local authority is finding your PA rather than yourself, or with support from a local broker.
Yeah, but the thing is, the person that the contract is with the local authority, I find them to be totally inefficient. Totally, I just don't. They haven't supported me. Like, for example, the people who are sending my way at one point, I had to keep chasing it myself. Personally, this isn't something I know or been in an arena before in my life. I find myself very low now because as a consequence of that. Ask any questions. There's not like you go into a bank and you get the T's and C's of a bank account. All they give is one leaflet, and they said, well, go for an agency. That was social services. So I went to an agency to help, to employ them, and then I was told by this people they contract out to, oh no, you can't be spending £20 an hour on the agency. You're only allowed to spend £16.36 or whatever it is. So that has to go. And then so that was, and I'm asking 120 questions to find out what is what. And then that was very frustrating, upsetting. Then anyone they were putting my way, was inappropriate for me. So I was seen as being the problem. And in fact, I am struggling on a day-to-day basis, and I really, I would not have engaged or gone through so much duress or, trying to get help for myself. I don't have any close family, sadly. I had to move because of my circumstance, and I just don't know what to do. It's just been really hard work.
So Tricia's offering. Tricia, are you available now just to give your offer?
So I'm just going to say, yes, but it sounds like, I'm not surprised if you're just going through agencies that you're not getting what you want, because agencies are the square peg in the round hole. They've got a very core role that they can offer by definition, and what you want is clearly really bespoke to you. So I'm really
but the service provider, sorry to interrupt you there, but the service provider that the local authority use, as in the adult social care team, the contractors they've put it out to, they're the ones additionally that are looking at me as putting people my way, being very clear about exactly what I need, that are sending people my way square in the hole, as well as just agencies. They said, go agency, which is what social services said. But then they're saying, no, you shouldn't be spending that much money at your direct payment.
I think you've had some really mixed, I think you've had some really clear, some really confusing advice. So are you talking about when you say a support agency, do you mean like a broker or a
well, it comes through, which the local authority at the adult social care team, that they contract out to, what do you call that, support agency? I don't know, or support provider or something, I don't know.
Okay.
So I think Tricia's saying she'll help.
Outside, if it's all right, let's chat outside, outside of here. If Julie, can I just get us, if you just send my email directly, would that be all right?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll send Tricia's email directly to you, and you can Tricia will work.
I'd be very grateful, because it's just been very. I haven't found it empowering at all. I find it very disempowering and very isolating. And it's just like, it's very. What I've been asking for is like, I'm on my own. I'm struggling each and every day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or anything like that. It's just been. It's just not been a pleasant time at all. I've been now looking for 3 years.
Right, I'd be going to your local, to your vet.
It won't be another 3 years, and Tricia will help you, and we'll make sure you get connected after this webinar.
I'd go to your local vets, and we'll have a chat and see who, because if you want something like dogs, then start with the vets. That's what I would do.
Brilliant.
But we'll chat afterwards, okay?
Thanks, Isa. Nicole? So if you just unmute yourself, you should be able to come through. Hi. You're unmuted now, so you should be able to speak. Hi, Nicole, you're unmuted now. No, you might pop on in a minute. I'm going to come down to Pippa. Pippa, if you unmute yourself. Here we go. Hi, Pippa.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
What great would Mom have? What great listener. I found it really interesting listening to everybody.
Did you get that? She says she found the webinar really interesting, listening to everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pippa.
The problem I have, my question, I've got two questions. One for Chris. I've got an advertising ridiculous, but I can't open any of the CVs.
Question for Chris. She's got an advert in with Cecil at the moment on Indeed, but she can't open any of the CVs because they come encrypted.
Yeah, that'll be through egress. So we use a system called egress to encrypt software. So if you just sign up to egress, but if you want to drop me an email afterwards, I'm happy to give you a call and talk through how to do that. It takes a couple of minutes to set up.
But also, my work police couldn't help me find the PA.
She says also, Miro, will you come and help her find a PA? She's having trouble.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm assuming you live in the same place as last time, so send me an email or a message on Facebook, and we'll sort out a time to chat.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Pippa. Stephen. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. If you just unmute yourself now, we've unmuted you at this end.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hi, Stephen.
Yeah. Hi, I've just unmuted myself now. I'll just briefly, introduce myself. I'll call myself a gentleman with a physical disability, and I have 3 PAs. So I think there was a time you were talking about the recruitment, and then someone talks about having experienced carers, right? So, in recruitment, just to let you know that for the way I recruited my own PA, I got support from Dazzle. I was able to actually put in place some questions regarding my own care because I know what I need. I know the support I need. So I was the one that actually, I took the lead in carrying out the interview. So, I look at different people that actually responded. After, going through the interview, the questions and things like that, I was able to, to take on some PAs, although it wasn't that easy, right? So, and I'm with payroll. They've been able to help very well regarding, timesheets and if there's any issues regarding my PAs. And with the experienced ones, I do find, like what the lady said, actually some PAs that are actually experienced, I don't know, probably trained in some ways, they actually, they don't, most of the time, they don't know what a person-centered support is, because every individual, we are all different and unique in our own ways. So the way I want to be supported, what I need, what my care needs are, is different from Mr. A or Miss A and B. So, I mean, although it's all lies on communication, because what I have just detected at work is I typed in the duties that I expected my PAs to do. I type it down, and this is the way I do my things. This is it. I mean, step by step. And I mean, talking to them, and I have my own review with them. I do carry out appraisal with them as well, you know. But I know it's not everybody that are able to do this. But with that, you know, you can always work in partnership with them, and you know, reducing them, taking control. That's what I want to say. Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's all I want to say.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And yes, that's very, yeah, everybody's unique and everybody needs to be trained in the individual. We've got another one on the question box, and this is around flexibility if you've not constantly got 24/7 PAs. So if you've just got a set number of hours, how do you get that level of flexibility? For example, if somebody had a last-minute work meeting, or something came up very suddenly that you wanted to go to, how would you get that flexibility? And I just wondered whether that would link with your bank staff, Miro. Do you have PAs constantly with you all the time, or do you have that level of flexibility to just jump and take the opportunity to do something?
Yeah, so with my situation, I have to have a PA with me all the time for my health needs and inverted commas social care needs. But what does happen is, because of my working schedule, sometimes there may be situations where the PA has to remain on longer in the shift. So for example, if I'm working in Leeds and they're with me and the traffic's a problem, they can't get back. So there's implications there. So what we do is, PA, when they're recruited, we acknowledge that during the interview stage, we explain to them that when they're doing their shift, there is a possibility that they may have to stay on longer because of the nature of, we're both somewhere, we're stuck and we can't get back, or something happens and we have to, you know, there's an emergency. So for example, when my father was taken very ill and had a heart attack, I had to immediately go to the hospital. Well, my PA meant that they had to stay with me because I had to go to the hospital to care for his needs. So we explain that in the system. So when PAs know their shifts, they know there's going to be an allowance of they need to stay longer possibility if circumstances arise suddenly. But of course, they are paid for those extra hours, and we make sure that's part of the package of what we're offering. But there needs to be a level of flexibility. But in return, what I also do is, sometimes I say to PAs, you know, there'll be downtime. So there'll be situations where, even though I need you for 12 hours, there may be a couple of hours at some point in the shift where I don't really need you because I want to have some private time, you know, with my friends or with my partner or family. So there's an opportunity there for them to get paid and kind of have a little bit like go into a kind of rest mode. So it's about being flexible, but it's about articulating this at the beginning of the conversations when you're recruiting, so people know what to expect in those situations.
Yeah, so I think it's back to conversations again, and I guess whether or not you've got sufficient in your budget to start off with.
Absolutely, and I think that's why it has to be part of that kind of support planning stage as well. So when you're thinking about support plan, what is it that you need? Well, you know, for me, when I've got responsibilities as a university lecturer, so there'll be times when my head of school will say to me, Miro, before you leave at 6 o'clock, we need to have a meeting to discuss something. So if my PA says, well, I'm not coming to the meeting, then that's obviously going to have an impact on my ability to carry out my job, and obviously that impacts then on my responsibilities and duties. So thinking about that whilst you're planning what you need in terms of good support, what good support looks like, and then translating that at the recruitment stage so that PAs are aware of what's required to them when they are allocated their shift, and there might be that need to be flexible, then I think that, you know, that kind of smooths out situations. And luckily, touch wood, we've never had a situation where a PA said, well, you haven't told me about this, so I'm refusing to do it. Because usually we've explained that, and if there are any problems in terms of upcoming shifts, and they know that they can't be flexible and stay longer, then we'll go to a situation where we'll look to swap their shifts with somebody else.
Yeah. So Anna, I know you've got your hand up now. Do you want to come on live and go through this situation? Because I think there's a balance between sufficiency of the budget, and then there's also where people have done almost like a banking person. Would you be willing on short notice to just come and and join me in a meeting or do some work. Hi, Anna.
Yeah, hi, yeah, I'm here. I think probably the reality is that the budget, I've had to fight very, very hard to get to my 30 hours now. Before I used to get a lot less. And but I've often had found either I end up, people who apply have either been quite young or a lot older, because they're the people that are around during the day, or they're mums with kids. So I often had a problem that people had childcare commitments and things. So and the work that I was doing was quite sporadic. There's no fixed sort of timetable to it. I don't get any social care hours to help with the work stuff, so I have to use my social inclusion hours. It's all just a sort of mess, really. But I do find it very difficult to have any kind of flexibility or spontaneity, because PAs will just say, well, I've made plans, which is fair enough, because I can't always know what's I get last minute hospital appointment and things like that. Life changes, and when you've only got 30 hours, it's very hard to plan everything within those hours when you don't know necessarily what's going to happen. But yeah, I just wondered if anyone else was in a similar situation.
I think there probably is a lot of people in that situation, Anna, but certainly I would help support you to challenge that your budget's not sufficient, and I know most of the people would definitely be more than happy and willing to help you to try and find the right people who aren't dictating to you when they can work, but will work around you instead.
Yeah, I've had a couple that have been great. But
do you have access? Have you got access to work funding for to support you in your work?
Because the work, this is where it gets complicated. It's not officially a job. I get paid expense. It is a long story, so you can't get access to work because it's not a contract. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but you should be able to get that through your assessment for
Yes, yeah,
I remember what they call it under the Care Act, but yeah, doing valued things in the community.
Yeah, because effectively it's voluntary work. You could call it voluntary work, and it would, yeah. But no, I don't.
So yeah, let's connect up after. And Karen's here nodding away. Anna, she's giving you a big wave.
I know. Karen, bless, has been offering to come and help me for ages, so I need to get.
I'll come down. We're ready.
That's brilliant. And I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to give chance to just try Andrea again. Are you still self-muted? Here we go. Hi, Andrea. I just wanted to make sure back to you because I know we tried earlier on.
Thanks. My question is regarding how you can, how social services do a needs statement and they allocate hours based on that, on specific tasks that they choose, even though they're asking you the questions, they tend to block out a lot of things or consider them not important. How much can we vary from the list social services make to reflect our real needs? I get, for instance, 17.5 hours per week. And of that, 1.5 hours are for cleaning for a week. But I have conditions which mean the bathroom has to be cleaned after every single time I use it. Yeah. And I don't know how, I'm always trying to take time from other tasks in order to not become more ill because of an unhygienic bathroom.
Yeah.
I have open wounds all the time, you see.
So really that's more of an assessment question than a recruiting PA question. So yes, there is a need. No, it's all right. But what I will say, Andrea, is that we are having another webinar at this time next week that is around managing direct payments and about managing the relationship with your CCG or your local authority. So that would probably be better answered there, really. But I'm more than happy to email you direct on this and talk about the eligibility criteria.
Thanks. But is it okay to tell carers, this is on the list, this isn't, but I need you to work on this today, even though it's not on the list? Is that a fair thing to do, or is something that we're not allowed to do?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair thing to do.
Yeah,
so
well,
again,
just
depends on your contract. Sorry, go on.
I was saying, who's the list? Who gave you the list?
Social services.
Who did
okay. Yeah. I think that, yeah, Julie, I think you need to pick this up afterwards, because I think you're being, I think that's, I certainly, when we had less hours, when we were talking about, like, you know, having sort of 20, 30 hours a week, like you're talking about, I certainly say for my mum, when my mum was alive, it is absolutely down to the flexibility of the local authority. We moved local authorities, and the first one, the budget was there, and we agreed what support needs were, and then we made them work, and that involved one person coming into my house to cook dinner for my mum and for both kids, because it would be really silly for them to see their needs separately. But that was because the local authorities about that. That makes complete sense. So anybody, the idea of that, it sounds like you're being micromanaged, and that's not right. So Julie, I'll pick that up with you afterwards.
Yeah,
thank you.
I will.
Thanks very much.
We're 4:05. I'm really sorry that we're not able to carry on from here now with other people with their hands up. There are also some questions in the question box that we haven't had a chance to answer. What we will commit to do is we'll populate them with answers, send them out. If you do want to get in touch with any of us directly, please use the admin@behuman.org.uk email. And we will, or just reply back to the email that you'll get as we send you things out. Just reply back to that, and we're happy to pick up things then separately to help in whatever way we can. Thank you so much to Karen, Tricia, Claire, Carol, Chris, Miro for joining us on the panel. Thank you for all coming and joining in on this. If you've got any ideas for further webinars, please do get back in touch with us and let us know. And we're more than happy to try and do more of these, or even do the same one another time if you feel that we haven't covered everything that people wanted to cover. The one at this time next week is managing your direct payment. So that's very much around what Andrea's just been talking about the relationship with the CCG or the local authority and what we can and can't do in managing the direct payment. So thanks ever so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.